I actually I actually went to school, boarding school in Scotland, not in England. And then I don't know whether Norman is. Where you from, Norman? Norman.
I'm from Essex,
Oh,
southern
okay, you're
England.
from England. So when I was in
Mhm.
Scotland, they always said that the English are foreigners. And but
Yeah, they
anyway,
they they.
they do that. And I went to boarding school there. Then I did law in Leeds University, and then I became a barrister later on. And that was it. But I retired a long time ago when I come back, 30 years ago. Right? I'm now a speaker. I write. And the one which I really feel very proud of my own achievement, which is fun things. I was a scuba diving instructor, which is something quite serious, and I learned a lot from my course, from my training as a scuba diving instructor. Now, I do a lot of training now, but one of the thing I noticed the difference, which I learned, I mean, what I learned from being a scuba diving instructor is this. You know, when you run a workshop, a seminar like this, people listen to you whether they take it seriously or not. You do not know, right? I mean, it's very difficult to know whether they understand or going to internalize what you tell them. But when you are a diving instructor, is a different thing. Yeah, when you give your training and you sign on that piece of credit card which they have with your name on it, it means that you are satisfied that they can reproduce the thing which you teach them. And this is something very lacking at the moment, right? I find that a lot of people that attend a lot of seminars, they say, ha ha, it's very good, and that's it. You see? So my philosophy is that you're only as good as you can reproduce it. That is the thing. So we try our best, right, to do that. And uh, okay, let's go on to this thing. Let me share screen. And where am I? Here. Where? Okay, this. Just a minute, bear with me. I cannot quite see the share screen. There you are. Can you see it, guys? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we
Yes,
can
yes.
start. We can start. Right. Now, Banping has kind of a title this series called leadership. In fact, I'm more inclined to say that it's not just it's kind of leadership and communication. Actually, that's what it is, all right? Because communication is a indispensable part of leadership, all right? So when you talk about storytelling, so what I'm going to talk about the storytelling as a tool, not just on leadership, but on everything. How you use storytelling to share ideas, share methods, and all that. No? That is essentially what it is. And so I call it storytelling the powerful tool for impactful communication, because you want to have your ideas coming across, you must learn how to do it. This is the image which I mean, of course, all of us aspire to be good uh, communicators and speakers, right? That's why we join organization Agora or Toastmasters and all that. We want to be able to speak and share ideas. And believe you me, I have been on the platform many times, and this is the scene which you're really scared of. If you are up there and speaking and people are like that, then there's something you must do about it. What we wish is we hope we are like that, like this man, right? Obama. You know that one of the reasons why Obama won at that time is that he was such a good speaker. He is a good speaker, but I do not share particularly his political view, but he is a very, very good speaker. And we all want to do that. Yeah. We all want to be able to captivate our audience, uh, so that they listen to us and hopefully take home some of the points we give them. Now, as a public speaker, These are the things, component parts, which you need to learn to become an effective, good speaker. Of course, number one is delivery skills. You must learn how to deliver your message. Right? And nowadays, unfortunately, both Toastmasters and Agora seems to have overlooked this because what in the past, when I was in this organization, when I was in Toastmasters, the first part of the program is talking about giving you the building blocks to be a good speaker. Now, both organizations are not doing that. You see, what are the building? Let's say talk of delivery skills. You must learn how to use your voice. You must learn how to modulate your voice. You must know how to, all those things. These are delivery skills, body language, all these things. And those are skills which you must learn, right? And in the past, it was taught. Component part of it was taught, right? But now nobody seems to be doing it, which is a shame. Let me give you a very short story. And my other half comes from the Philippines. As you know, the Philippines, they're very good singers. Many years ago, about maybe 20 years ago, when karaoke, ever heard of karaoke, guys? Right? Karaoke first came on the scene, and everybody is singing karaoke. And I came across two newspaper cutting from Philippines where two persons in different occasion were killed in the karaoke session, right? And interestingly, both of them they were killed while singing the song "My Way." Now, some of you who are into this, I did it my way kind of a thing, right? Now, I was curious because karaoke, that song "My Way" is very well written by Nelson Sedaka and very well sang by what's his name? I forgot his name now. But unfortunately, it has a rising chord which some people cannot handle. So when this guy in Cebu, the city of Cebu, singing, and he he sang so badly, everybody started laughing at him, and he got angry, and he took out his gun and shot some people, right? And the other one was where in Manila, where he sang it so badly that people couldn't stand him and stab him, and he died. So what I'm saying is this: that song, that song, "My Way," was such a good song, very well written, all these things, but it was delivered badly. So a communication excellence demands all these things which I put. You can see what I put down there, right? It demands that you don't just need a good script. You must be able to deliver the script. The song "My Way" was such a good song, but the people who sang badly that they got killed. So the same with us. The analogy I give is for us as speakers. This is something which we should learn delivery skill. Now that you have content, which is the material itself, right? That's why just now I said when you want to comment on something, you should do some reading, and so that you understand, and then your content is valid. And of course, your content has to be organized, which is one of the things you got to learn how to organize. And I throw in the thing of prose because as a writer, I'm very careful when I'm writing to choose words which convey certain colors, certain images, and all that kind of thing. And form and tools, and this is where we come into it. When we communicate, we can do a kind of essay type of talk, all right? But one of the things which we're going to do this session is one of the most effective way of communicating ideas, a story. That's what we're going to talk about. It's easier. It's so much easier. And you see, this is the kind of thing. You see, this lady may not be trained as a speaker, but she was telling stories, and people are glued to her. So this is something which I feel that we can learn how to tell stories, and it is so much easier. And today we're going to talk about that, right? So essentially, what I'm talking about is using stories to deliver point. using stories to communicate. Now, Banpeng brought in there as leadership. Yes, we're using stories to communicate the essential elements of a leader. Later on, I'll give you as your homework, which you can do that. Right? Look, I will just talk about it now. Anybody recognize this place? Hello? Do you know where it is?
No.
Cambodia.
Now, Cambodia, there are a couple of you from Indonesia. There is the equivalent of Barbados, right? This is in
Siem Reap.
Siem Reap. That
Siem
is
Reap.
Angkor Wat. Yeah, Angkor Wat, right? Angkor Wat, and I think it's the 8th century beautiful place. And I will tell this story about my story in Angkor Wat, and it's a story within a story, right? About 10 years ago, I went to Angkor Wat with my family, and we were very lucky when we went there. It happens that at that time, once a year, the national ballet and dance troupe of Cambodia perform a play with using the Angkor Wat as the backdrop. I mean, it's fantastic. You know, when you go to a theater, you get a projection on the screen. This is a real thing. You know, they built a stage, a very big stage in front of the temple, and they were dancing there. And we were there. And it was fantastic experience because I feel so great. The evening was very cool with a kind of balmy breeze on our cheek, and with the starlights and the moonlight. And then you get these dancers, the court dancers called apsaras, right? Because and the guide who was with us, and they were performing a thing called Ramayana, the Ramayana, all right? And the guide told us, which was make it even more impressive. He said, "You see the girls who are dancing, the apsaras. 1,000 years ago, the apsaras, the dancers, were doing the same dance. So what you're seeing is something which is authentic from the past. I mean, it's so impressive. I was mesmerized. My family was mesmerized with it. So the guy said, "Do you like the play? Do you like the dance?" I said, "Yes, it's beautiful. The story is beautiful." Now, I think some of you may know we just celebrated the festival of lights, which is called Deepavali, right? Singapore also celebrated it Deepavali, right? And the Ramayana is about that, right? That is about Ramayana, I should say. So I said, "Wow, this is a beautiful story." And the guide said that if you think it's just a beautiful story, you are only reaping half of the value. I said, "What do you mean?" You know, you listen to it as a story and you're impressed. But the story, in fact, is a medium of communicating a message, right? And that the story of Ramayana is a story which talks about the beauty of human values, right? And it's also talk about the folly, the badness, and the folly of human pride and all that kind of thing. So if you listen to the story with that mind, then you can pick up the vice and the virtue which is being depicted in the story itself. So I'm going to tell you the story very quickly and then see if you can remember what are the values, you know, and what are the follies, I think, the vices which is depicted in the story. So our ancestors always use stories to teach something, and Ramayana is one of them, right? So Ramayana is like this. The king, his name is Dasaratha, of a country called Ayudha, all right? He was getting old. So he wanted to abdicate, he wanted to give up his throne. So naturally, he wanted to give his throne to the eldest son, which was Rama. Now the king has three wives. And the second wife, the name of Kakai, and she was upset that because the king has chosen Rama, who's the son of the first wife, she really want her son Bharata to be the king, right? So she went to the king Dasarata and she said, I demand that you banish Rama into the dark forest of Danka for 14 years. And at that time, in his place, my son Bharata should be the king. So listen to me, huh? And that is a shocking thing, no? And what did the king do? The king agreed. The king agreed. Why? Because years ago, when the king was young and he was in the battle, and in the battle, his chariots, the horse-drawn chariot, broke. And a beautiful princess saved him. And there's a story how he saved him, but he saved him. And that princess later on became his second wife, which is Kaikai. All right? So the king at that time, he was saved by the princess. He said to the princess, I'm going to give you two boons, two favors, two boons. And you can ask for it anytime I will grant you. So now, many years later, because by then it must be 20 years later, the princess called for her mark, saying that you promise, right? The two boons were one, banish Rama to the dark forest of Danka, two, make my son Bharata as the king. So the king said, yes. Then Rama, when he was being told by the father that he is not going to inherit the throne, but the throne is going to be given to his half-brother Bharata, what did Rama do? He said, yes, father. Right? And so he has to be banished to the dark forest of Danka. And he knew, at that time, Rama had just married this beautiful girl called Sita. He knew that the life in the forest is very dangerous and very difficult. So he told Sita, you stay in the palace. I will go on a banishment for 14 years, right? But Sita said, no, my love, I'm your wife. I'm with you always, and I will go with you. And his brother, because remember there were three wives. The son of the third wife, his name is Lakshmana. When he heard this news, so he went to Rama and said, look, brother, I know the forest is very dangerous. I will go with you as your protector. I will stay with you for 14 years in that dark forest. And Rama was really impressed, very touched by this. So they went to the forest in obedience to the order of the king Dasarata. Bharata, the son whom the second wife said must be the king, was aware at that time. He didn't know about this. So when he came back, everybody would kind of welcome him as the king. And he said, what's going on here? I mean, the king, if he's going to be a new king, it must be my brother Rama. And then people said, no, your father has done this and banished them, all these things. And Bharata was so shocked. And he went into the dark forest himself and knelt in front of Rama and said that, look, you should be the king. Please take back your throne. But Rama said, no, this is the wish of our father. We must obey it. Then Bharata said, in that case, what you do is this. You give me the pair of sandals which you're wearing now, the straw sandals. I will wear these sandals and I place it in front of the throne to remind people that I'm just sitting in this throne in your place. And during that time for 14 years, he wore the garb, the cloth of a hermit, the sackcloth. That was Bharata. So that part of the story. Now you can spot, right? There are vice and virtues there. Later on, I'll ask you, see if you can tell me what it is. Now, while they were in the forest, and Lakshmana and Rama knows that it's very dangerous, so whenever they go hunting, they used to ask Sita to stay in the house, in a place where they dwell, and they draw this circle, kind of a magic circle. You say, as long as you don't step out of this circle, they told Sita, you are safe. So Sita always stay in a circle. Around the forest, there was a demon king by the name of Ravana. Now Ravana, he looks up and he saw the beautiful Sita. He lust after her. But he knew that Sita, as long as he's inside the circle, nobody can touch her. So he called his, we call it Lucky, that's mean his, slave, so to speak. The name is Maricha. Maricha is one of these shape shifter. You know what's a shape shifter? Somebody who can take different shape, right? So he told Maricha, can you entice this Sita out of the circle? So what Maricha did, he turned himself into a golden deer, and he runs past the circle. And when Sita saw, wow, what a beautiful deer, so he chased the deer, and so he stepped out of the circle and was captured by Ravana and was taken away, far away, right? So when they came back, they found out Sita is gone, and they start trying to, Lakshmana and Rama was looking around for her, they couldn't find. Then they saw a monkey, right? A monkey. That monkey is Hanuman. Some of you who follow this, Hanuman is a magic god of monkey. Hanuman was there. And then they say, hey, did you see a lady or whatever? Hanuman said, no, I didn't see anything. But what I saw was like very bright stars falling from the sky. You know what was it? Sita, when she was captured by Ravana and was being taken on this chariot flying across the sky, she took her jewelries and she threw it down so that it acted as a beacon, So when Hanuman said, I saw this thing, it's going that direction. So Rama and Lakshmana and recruited Hanuman, who is a general as well, and they followed that track until they came to the shore, to the sea. This is in India, all right? And Ravana has taken Sita onto the island of, what is the island beside India? Anybody knows?
Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. So he's taken her to the island of Lanka, where he held her prisoner. Now, Rama, Lakshmana, and Hanuman were standing on the shore on the Indian side. They cannot cross the sea. So what do you do? Now, Hanuman, how I said, he's a magic general, monkey general. So he has this thousands of little followers, little monkeys, and he shouted, and the little monkeys came, thousands of them came, and he told them, we have to build a bridge from India, from the shore of India, of course it's not called India at that time, we call it India now, to that island there. So all these monkeys, each one of them carried a rock, and they threw it into the sea, and it formed a bridge. So the army of the monkeys and Rama, Lakshmana crossed over, and they confronted. It was an epic battle between good and evil. So they fought, and then eventually Ravana was killed. So when they're killed, it happens that by then, the 14 years, remember the 14 years of banishment has elapsed. So they then went back home in triumph. Now the people in Ayodhya heard about it, and they celebrate by lighting these lights. Deepavali means rolls of lights, and also you said that the lights was being put along the path so that it guides them through the darkness back to light. That was a story. And this was a story was told 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. So the guy told me, you see the story, do you see something else? Why do you think we just tell a story like that? You see, the story is the divine was trying to talk to us about vice and virtue, about light and darkness. Now I'm going to ask you guys, what are the vices, if you can name one, and what are the virtues, if you can name one? Any volunteers, please help me.
Yeah, the vice is to capture somebody else's wife.
Yes. Yeah, that is a vice, all right? There's a lust as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lust is a vice. Anything else?
Then the virtue is to grant the wishes that that the mark call for it.
Yes. What is that? Anybody? Okay, Panteng, let's see. Anybody? What do you call that in English now? What the behavior of the king? What was it? Full of what? Starting with I.
Integrity.
Yes, it's integrity. He made the promise when he was a young prince. Remember? And he told the princess, you have saved my life, I give you these 2 boons. 20 years later, she asked for it, and it hurts him to send his son into the dark forest. But he is a man of integrity. He was a man of integrity. They chose that. What else is there? There are a lot actually. What about the behavior of Rama?
Respecting.
Huh? Go on.
Respecting his father's wishes.
Yeah, what is the word we use nowadays? Filial piety. Yeah? This is actually a very ancient values, filial piety, right? What else is there? Okay, I'll just go through very quickly. I think when you think about it, you begin to see it, all right? And of course, there is a courage, you see. And then what do you think Maricha was? His behavior, Maricha. It's a deceit, isn't it? He turned himself to a golden giver. So deceit is a vice, you see. There are many more. And then as a leader of Hanuman, what did he do? This is a very important lesson for us. A leader does not work alone. A leader is one who can mobilize his supporters. So he knew he cannot build the bridge. So he asked the thousands of monkeys, each one of them carried a stone, right? And a rock and throw it across there. So there are a few more, and you can contemplate on this. And if you read it, with the open heart, you see things inside that. And then the symbol of the light, that we emerge from darkness, right? Guided by the light into the light. And that is another thing, right? And this is the thing I talk about, is that as we learn to read and all this, we try to understand things. We dig deep to understand issues in the world. We don't just simply jump, So that is what some of the lessons we learn, right? I'll leave it at that because it's quite involved. We can actually run a whole workshop with this where we try, right? But I'll do something else. What I would suggest to some of you is that if you're interested, go and read a book called Think Like Da Vinci. All right? Read a book called Think Like Da Vinci or something. I think 7 Habits of, I cannot remember. Think Like Da Vinci. You look at that. And why was Leonardo da Vinci such a brilliant genius? So there are certain characteristics of Da Vinci you can read, right? Anyway, and let's move on. So leave Ramayana for a while, and then you contemplate on it and read. And you see how they teach very different. They were teaching us values and vices using a story. Now you contrast that with the Christian one. I'm a Christian, so I can say that. What happened when Moses Anybody know who was Moses? Moses saw the burning bush, and then what did Moses do? He went up the mountain, right? Okay. And how long was he in the mountain?
40 years.
3 days he was up there. And this is a joke I'm going to tell you now, right? Since we're in Agora and Toastmasters is this. And this is something you got to learn about communication. When Moses came down, actually, okay, Moses originally, I mean, now we know that Moses came down with 2 tablets, tablets, 2 stones, right? He came down with 2 tablets. In fact, he came down with 3 tablets. And he dropped one of them, it broke. So by the time he reached the foot of the hill, he had only 2. And people hanging around Moses and say, hey, what did God tell you? Oh, he said, God gave me 10 commandments. All right? Wow. So Moses started to say 1, 2, 3, 4, right? You see, it's very different teaching from Ramayana one. It is an edict, we call it. They tell you what to do and what not to do. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not do this. Whereas Ramayana, they tell a story. It lets you kind of internalize a story. It's different methods, yeah? So Moses was going through 1, 2, 3. They're altogether 10. And then the people are getting very impatient. Come on, that's too many points. And this is what you learn in communication as an Agora speaker or as a Toastmaster is that never have too many points in your speech, right? So they told Moses, come on, don't give us all these points. Just give us 2 or 3 points, which is what we should do when we do a speech. 2 or 3 points. Any Christians among us here? Hello? Yes?
Yes.
What do you
Yes.
think are the 2 main points which Moses should have told the people, which God gave him? Shona,
Love,
yeah? What? Yes, I hear that correct word. Yes.
love your neighbor as
Huh?
you love yourself.
Yes, that's one point.
And then I think obey. I forget the first one actually.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, let me just tell you now. Is this God only gave 2 main points. I'm the Lord thy God. That means you have to worship me. You have to, love God. That's what you're saying. Love me. The second point is love your neighbors. You see, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, blah, blah, blah. Those are all about neighbors. So the essence of teaching, in fact, there's only 2. I'm the true God. Don't have any false God. Right? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. On the 4th day, you have to honor the Sabbath. That's when you go to church or whatever it is, isn't it? The first 4 is about God. The next are all about your neighbors. So we learn in communication, we learn to what we call chunking our key ideas. Huh? So you learn from but at the moment we're talking about using stories, which is a bit easier, is it? To do that, to share ideas. Now, a bit about Christians. Somebody, do you know what is this picture about? Anybody, any of you who are Christians here?
Washing of feet.
Yeah, what is it?
Service.
What? Yes, it's a term we use nowadays a lot.
Servant leadership, you were saying.
Yes, it is the concept of servant leadership. It originated from this. Yeah. So now we can say that, okay, if I ask you to write an essay, what is servant leadership? Okay, so you can write an essay, this, that. But the story by John, those of you, I don't know how many Christians are here, John chapter 13, 1 to verse 1 to 17, he told a story. John is one of the 4 evangelists, all right? So the Matthew, Luke, and John, right? The 4 evangelists for the Christians. So he told a story about the concept of servant leadership. You can write an essay about servant leadership, but he used a story. So those of you who have access to the Bible, go and look at John 13, 1 to 17, right? Later on, right? So what was the story? I paraphrase it, and wait a minute, how do I get rid of this? Okay. Now I'll read it very quickly. I make sense. So the story told by John, I simplify. He said Jesus and the disciples were celebrating the Passover, right? It was a feast, and Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father, and that he did not have much time left with his disciples. Remember, he had 12 disciples, and he had something he wanted to teach them before he left the earth. So he got up from the meal, because they're having a meal, and he took his outer clothing and he wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water in a basin and began to wash the feet of his disciples. And he dried them with the towel. Peter, who was the chief of the disciple, could not understand why Jesus was doing this. And he does not allow Jesus to do it, because how can you have your master, your leader, washing your feet? You know? Then Jesus explained to him, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Don't know what it means. Actually, Jesus was teaching the disciples that how they should treat other people. That the way after he left, the new way of leading, the new leadership is what you're going to follow him. That's what he did. You have no part with me if you don't do this. That's mean to watch symbolically wash your feet. That is where we come up with a servant leadership. And he was noticing that up to that point, the disciples competing with each other to see who is more important. Right? So the servant leadership concept started from there. And we can write a whole essay on servant leadership. But John, in telling this very short story, in fact, illustrates the real meaning of servant leadership. So this is an example of how you use story to communicate and teach. Right? How many of you heard of this story?
I have.
Hello?
Yes,
Yes?
I have.
Yeah.
What is it?
The tortoise and the hare race.
Yes, the tortoise and the hare. So you all know, right? And what is it trying to teach you? Okay, the story very quickly is that they had a race, and then the tortoise was very slow. The race was so fast, and the hare was so fast, he ran so fast, and then he got arrogant and he fell asleep on the foot of the hill of the tree, and then the tortoise managed to crawl past him and won the race. That is the story, right? So what is teaching us? This is saying actually.
Slow and steady.
Yes, slow and steady, and that is the lesson we're going to teach, right? Saying that it'll slow and steady, and also don't be arrogant and all this thing, right? Now, I will share with you this story. There was a very famous Chinese writer, and some of you who are Chinese educated may have heard of him. I don't. Is Ban Peng? Are you Chinese educated? Right?
No, I'm
No.
not.
Okay. Never mind. He's called Lu Shen, right? And his famous thing is called Old Stories Retold. Now, I heard these stories being retold, and it was very interesting. So the story goes like this, the new version of the story. The hare and the tortoise was being asked to do a race, right? And the race is going to go over hill, down, the hill, cross the swamp, the river, and all that kind of thing. So they were struggling, right? So then the hare was asking the tortoise, "Excuse me, why are we competing? Why are we trying to outdo each other?" And so they decide, hey, we don't want to do this because people ask us to do the race, all right? Just as an entertainment, we should not do that. So what they did, they decided to hold hands and help each other. So as they the hare was very fast on the flat ground, so he carried the tortoise. And when they came up to the swamp, the hare cannot swim, so he climbed on the back of the tortoise, and the seafood crawled through the mud and across the lake to the other side. So both of them held hand in hand, crossed the line. That is the new version of the story I heard. So you notice that they are teaching different things. Why are you competing with each other when you can cooperate? So using story to teach. This is an example. And I wish that you, from now on, look at stories and see how you can pick up the key points to teach the values which you want to teach. All right? Share. I will end here very quickly. I'll ask you guys for any question. Just remember the last time when I did think on leadership, these are some of the key attributes which we think a leader should have. Now, if you look at these key attributes, when you have time, think of each one of them and think of its story to depict these values. What kind of stories can you do to depict care? For example, the servant leadership is care, all right? And then you can talk about commitment, which is part of the key points as a leader. Talk about the communication, competency, congruence, character. Instead of just saying what is character, you use a story. Yeah. And there are many, many stories. Courage, for example, right? Many stories. I will give you one very short one. Is this? Some of you may be familiar with the Chinese, what do you call this? Historical novels or stories. And there's this guy, a general, very famous general. He's called Guang Gong, right? He was very, very courageous and very upright and, really staunch guy. And he was shot by the enemy, and there was a poison arrow which hit his hand. And while he was doing that, he asked the doctors to try to heal him. And so they have to cut off the flesh and then scrap the poison from this bone, At the time when they were doing it, he was playing chess, right? He was playing chess and he didn't flinch. So that story, you can read about it, is how this leader demonstrate courage, commitment, and whatever you have. So just using the story, Another one I can share with you. There are lots of stories. Now, some of you may have heard of the Chinese epic called the Outlaws of the Marsh, the water margin they call it, and the Chinese call Sui Fu Zhuan. It's about these people who rebel against the emperor, and then eventually they came out. So when they came out, and the emperor absolved them into the army, and the leader of that particular one was Zhang Chong, I think his name. I forgot the name now. The other generals who were on the emperor side before was jealous of him, and they are scared that he would bring the revolt again. But the Chinese at that time, they have this very strong belief in the leaders. They say that the emperor is the mandate from heaven. We must not go against the emperor. They did in the past, but they regretted they did it. So now they come out. So the other people plotted, and then they put a poison in a vat of wine and say that it is a gift from the emperor to this rebel leader. Now, what did he do? He knew that wine was poison, but he drank it. Of course, he died, but he was demonstrating a character, things like so. That story bring forward certain things. So I will end it here. I'll just leave you some thoughts on which you can work on, right? And if you have any, I stop share first. If you have any question or anything you want to bring up, please do so. I can share with you some more. All right. Okay. Thank you, Van Peng. Back to you.
Thank you, Dunstan. I have a question. I want to
Yes.
ask you first. I enjoy your presentation very much. There's a lot of not only the content value, but the methodology, how you do it, is quite amazing. But I felt I cannot do it the way you do. You taught us about, okay, tell story to explain this quality, this virtue and things like that. But when you do it, you can remember so many things, whether it's
Oh.
about the Ramayana or about Jesus or about anything.
Yeah,
How
I
do you
understand.
remember so much details in a story?
I think you should try to read story and be totally immersed in story. I find that story is easier to remember. You read a book, for example, let's say you read a book by Tom Peters or Stevie Covey and all this kind of, it's very difficult, right, to remember. But that's the trick of stories. Okay, let's say Steve Covey, I think they talk about the sharpening the saw, right? Remember, right? So you want to sharpen the saw, but it is, I think he did or somebody else did later on. They use a story. I think our late friend did that.
Green?
Gerald Green,
Yeah.
about this young man, and the old man was cutting trees or something like that, and the young man was whacking away at the trunk, and then the old man he hit he cut a bit, and then he spent a lot of time sharpening the axe. You see, and that story about the young man and the old man was what Stephen Covey was trying to share, is that you must always sharpen and improve your skill, and so that you can work rather than blindly do something. That is a very important lesson. So I don't know, you asked me that question. I personally find that story is very easy to remember because I love them. Yeah.
No, but there are
We love
so many characters, Dunstan, in your Ramayana, just that story. I think there must be at least maybe 10, 20 characters that you
more
mentioned.
than that, a lot, but I
Yeah.
love them. I don't know
Yeah.
how, but I just love him. I don't know. Some of you from Indonesia, maybe you are from Singapore, it's different perhaps. But those of you who are from Indonesia, we come from the tradition of the oral tradition. You know what it mean, oral tradition, right? That's been we didn't have a written language until recently. So all the things, our history, everything is remembered through stories. Whereas if you have a book, you can refer to it. And I particularly come from Borneo. Borneo is the deep. By the way, Indonesia is moving the capital to Borneo, and they call it Nusantara. And Nusantara is the original people here. This Nusantara Samudra, the land and the sea, right? And we didn't have written language, so everything was captured through our stories. But in answer to your question, actually, I run some workshop on story, and then maybe one day we can run that. Then you can understand how we remember stories. I'll just give you one hint now. In my traditions, this is Borneo, we have a thing called a memory stick. These people have forgotten about it. You know what's a memory stick? Hello?
Not the thumb drive, is it?
Yes. Memory stick. Memory sticks is like this. When you tell a story, exactly answering your question, in the past, all right, they have this stick, and our story relates to the people, our history. So you got to remember what happened. So they carve on this stick, little thing notch, and the storyteller, when they tell the story, this is I am trying to look for it now. I can't find it because this is ancient time. So the storyteller has this stick. It's just like a note, and he runs his finger down the stick as he was telling the story, and that is the original memory stick, not the one you stick in your computer. So I don't know. I mean, I love it because even the story of the stories, the memory stick itself is already very interesting. And I can't answer your question, but you have to love. You have to love.
Okay.
Any, anything else?
I want to ask you something other not directly related to
Yeah,
your
okay.
presentation, but it's regarding the Chinese Monkey King and the Indian Monkey King. Do you feel there is like a
Yeah, the
relationship?
Indian, anybody of Indian extraction here? Yeah, you guys, you know Hanuman, right? Okay. Have you seen the play of Hanuman? Where you're from Bali or not? Oh, you're from Singapore. Okay. If you go to Bali, almost every hotel will perform the Hanuman story, the one I just told you, all right? And they, I believe that they are related in the sense that ours is Sun Wukong, Hanuman is the Hindu one, and there is, I think, and because you got to remember the story of Sun Wukong, if you know, they took the journey. The story of the main story of Sun Wukong is the journey to the west. They took the journey going across the mountain to India to collect the Buddhist script. So there is a relationship there. I'm actually in the process of trying to cut the stories because the story of Sun Wukong is very long. It's an epic, and I want to do it in chunks of about 7 minutes and tell the stories. And it's very interesting. I just happen to love it. There are thousands of stories, and from my point of view, is that just before COVID, I went to Xinjiang, and I went to a place called Turpan, right? And there is supposed to be they call the fiery mountain. And it's quite amazing. When you go there, you see the mountain. It's really hot, that place. And that was the first story of Sun Wukong. If you go and read Sun Wukong, one of the episode, he crossed the mountain. They have to cross that mountain. And so why I remember is because when I see this thing, it's kind of tickle my memory. I say, oh, wow, my God, this I read about this mountain. It's really hot, And Sun Wukong, his story is he used a fan to fan off the fire. So that story is telling, right? Okay. Anybody else? So now what do you do? Do you tell stories? Hmm?
You need to unmute.
Yes. Do I tell stories? At some point I used to tell stories to my son.
Yeah.
Had some moral.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was my way of trying to teach him certain things.
Yes, that's good because actually we come from Southeast Asia. We have a lot of stories. I mean, every country has stories. Even when I was in Scotland, there are so many beautiful stories, and the Scottish are very passionate about their stories, right? And those of you who are into stories, you can watch the film called Braveheart, and that is a story. And you cry when if the story is well told, you'll cry, things like that. Okay, guys, we all right?
Yeah, Monica, tell us what.
Yeah, Monica, yeah, you were talking a lot about it.
Yeah.
I think stories should be good for you because you're teaching people. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Tell us what
Thank
you
you.
have learned that you can apply, Monica.
Yeah, sure, sure. Thank you so much. How should I call you, sir?
Dunstan. That's my
Dunstan.
name. Dunstan.
Dunstan. I learned a lot today actually because first of all, to be honest, I feel nervous here because I was absent for so long. So this is the first time after maybe a year, and yeah, I am interested to join here because Mr. Banpeng talked about storytelling and then leadership, and I
Mm.
really learned a lot today from you, Dunstan. Um, I'm amazed on how you relate the story and the leadership points. Yeah, in the end of your slide, I think. Yeah, Dunstan. I have a question, by
Right.
the way. Yeah, do
Yes.
you always use story in your speech? I mean, like
Yes, I do.
the
Even in my
popular ones?
writing.
Oh,
So
okay.
I always use stories, even in writing. I find that it's so much easier, and people understand it, and people like to read my columns because they can relate to it. You see, stories is something which we find easier to read. If somebody give you an essay, argument, this and that, you find very difficult to follow. But if you use stories, right, and as an art form, I think is very important. I would think that. We should make story as one of the key foundation for communication. It's so much easier, and do try it. And I see there's a guy called Aesop.
Mm.
You know
Yeah.
who's Aesop, right?
Yeah.
Right.
He
Aesop's
knew about it
fables.
a couple of thousand years ago. That's why he wrote a lot. It's called Aesop fables,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's a story with a lesson. It's
Yeah.
Aesop fables, right? And so you see, people have been doing it all the time, so I would think the other reason why I think it's good to be involved in storytelling is this is also it will force you to develop your delivery skill, isn't it? Because story is quite emotional. So you can give a very kind of academic essay and people fall asleep. But if you use story, but as you tell the stories, it has that kind of you know I don't know what's the term, the T we call it when you're telling the stories, right? And in Middle East, which country? Quite a few countries. I went to a place called a cafe. It's a cafe they drink coffee. I think it's Turkey somewhere. And there's this old man. He's very famous. He's the entertainer. And he tells stories. You go there to listen to him. I mean, I didn't understand Turkish, but his voice is all this thing, and you are kind of very captivated by that. So if you aspire to be a communicator and all this kind of thing, storytelling will force you to apply vocal variety. Because you cannot say once upon a time there was a beautiful princess, isn't it? I mean, it's boring. So the minute you want to tell a story, say once upon a time there was a beautiful princess. I mean, naturally you do that, is it? So if you, since you're saying you are interested in 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 teaching younger people, precisely that you have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Dunstan, how about personal story? What do you think?
Yes. Maybe one day we can do a seminar or what they call this education session about stories, because what you're talking about is when we tell stories, there are three viewpoints, we call it. First is the first person, which is the personal, all right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then the second person is you tell somebody about it. The third person is you, a person who's observing something and who narrates the story. And some of the stories personal sometimes it's easier because you I mean it's close to you, right? And many, if you go and listen, I don't know, have you attended any of the speech competition? Have you
Uh,
attended any of speech competition? Yeah.
yeah,
You
long time
notice
ago.
almost all the speakers are using stories, and many of them use personal stories.
Okay.
Hmm? The reason why you use personal stories is your original one. I give you one story before I leave. I just can't keep this. Many years ago, there was a Toastmaster world champion by the name of, what's the name, who is blind?
Oh,
But then,
the black guy. I
I forgot
yeah.
his name.
Yeah.
And
I
he was
forgot the
blind.
name as well. Yeah. He was in Singapore. He came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the stories he told, which is a personal, which actually won. I think it's the one we won. He's quite funny actually. He's blind, all right? And he was saying that there was an earthquake. He was in Los Angeles, I think. There was an earthquake, all right? And so there was an earthquake. The building was shaking and the whole office was panicking and all this. And his colleague specially went to his room to look for him. And he was so moved by them. He said, wow, my colleague really think about me. And You know why they went to look for him? The light went out. They do not know how to get out, and he's the only person who knew it. And he used that story. I mean, I just almost fell down laughing, you know. And I was saying, "Wow, that was fantastic!" And the way he said it, he said, "Wow, my colleague is so great. You know, they come specially to look for me in the earthquake." Later on, he found out that they did not know how to get out of the exit. You see, this this is the beauty of personal stories. It can be very funny, you know. And we should do one storytelling session. Each one of you tell your own stories, and you find out when you tell your own stories. Can I wrap up now? I just give you
Ye-
one. I
Yes,
think it's
please.
this.
I remember the name. Dana
Huh?
Lamont.
Oh, yes,
Dana,
Dana
Dana.
Lamont. That's right, yeah. And another thing about Dana Lamont, I must tell you, I'm a storyteller. I'm sorry about that. I went to America and I was on the way back, all right? I flew to Taiwan, from Taiwan back to Malaysia. And when I was at the immigration, I was talking to my wife, and this Dana Lamont said, "Hey, Dunstan, is that you?" And this is a blind guy. So his hearing has highly developed, so he can recognize
Mm.
this, yeah, something like this. And anyway, I'll just end up with this. When you're telling the stories, your stories, just imagine this. When I'm telling you a story, I'm not telling you a story, right? You understand what I'm saying? I'm not. Can you see? Can you hear me? Guys?
Can hear?
Why do I get? How do I get out of this speakers mode?
Okay, because I pin you, so I got to
Okay,
unpin
no,
you.
okay, I got that.
Okay, hold on.
Now, what did I say? Now, imagine this, all right? A storyteller is somebody who go on a journey. He's inside the journey. Now, those of us who from certain tradition, we have this belief called the shamanic journey. The shamanic journey means you travel in the mind, right? So the storyteller is in the place. And what he's doing is this, he's not telling us, he's putting out his hand and say, "Come, let's walk together in this journey." And you have to have that mindset. So when I tell the story, I'm immersed in the story. I'm not telling you the story. I'm saying that I'm imagining myself in this place and I'm inviting you to walk together with me. The concept, the shamanic journey is like that, meaning I think those of you who have the same kind of Vedic and the Indian background, you understand the concept called astral travel.
All right.
Astral travel is when your
Soul.
your spirit move.
Mm.
I got a lot of story, you know, but I'll just tell you, sorry, I cannot resist this one. Right? The Chinese has this thing called the eight fairies, Pa Xian, and all the eight
Eight
goddess or
immortals.
gods.
Eight
Yeah, eight
immortals.
immortals cross the sea is famous one.
Mm-mm.
And if you look at the picture, you go and search later on, huh? Look at the picture of the eight immortals. All of them are very nice. Some of them very handsome guy, beautiful ladies. Out of the blue, there is one guy there who is out of place. He's a beggar and he's limping and he has a wine gout, you know, he put wine in there and he's drunk, you know, and he's very dirty. And somebody asked, how can this guy be a god? Everybody looks so nice except him. Yeah. So I end up with the stories like this. There was this priest who was very holy and very wise and all this kind of thing, all right? And he can do this astral travel. When he meditates, his spirits go somewhere. So one day, he got a message from his master on the other side of the world saying that he had to go and visit him. So he told his disciple, there's one disciple who takes care of him, said that, I'm going to see my master. I'm going to be away for 1 week, right? And then I will come back after 7 days. But if I don't come back after 7 days, you have to burn this body, cremate this body. All right, that was his instruction, you see. So he went on this journey to the other side of the world and where he paid homage to his master. And then On the sixth day night, almost midnight, the disciple who was supposed to taking care of the body, right? His spirit has left, so take care of the body still. He received news from his own village saying his mother is dying. So he has to go back to his village. So the disciples say, I mean, I've been asked to stay with the master, right? And now my mother is dying. What should I do? And all this thing. And he was getting near midnight. So I said, it makes no difference. Since it's almost midnight, he is not going to come back anyway. So he went to this village. So the master, on the stroke of midnight, flew back. The body, I mean the spirit, astral travel, flew back. And the disciple has burned the body already, has cremated the body. So he has nowhere to go. And he must find a body within 7 days. So his soul, I mean, was floating around in the village looking for somebody, and he couldn't find. Then he saw this homeless man, and who was a cripple, who was a drunk, who was so dirty, dead on the roadside, just died. Right? So he has to enter that. And that person, if you can search the internet, is called Tia Kwai Li. His name, Tia Kwai Li. He is, in fact, a very beautiful god. All right? And this is to do with the concept of the essence and the vessel, we call it. What you see here is just the vessel. The real me is inside. Anyway, this is a very philosophical thing. Anyway, you see, when you come to storytelling, there are a lot of things to tell, And one day we can have a special session where maybe we can share stories. And you share stories from your tradition. I share stories from my tradition. And you'll find it so fantastic. Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, good night.
Everybody,
Thank you.
show our thank you to Dunstan with a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoy your session very much, and I learned very much. So I will
Thank you.
try to apply what I learned. I know it's very difficult, but you did such a great job. It's simply amazing. I think
Thank you.
I will try to get this 1 hour session for you to speak at Agora conference. I think this is something I've not seen anybody delivering this storytelling kind of workshop so well, so amazing. So let me see whether I can. It's not organized by me next year. It's organized by my colleague in Romania. So
Yeah,
I'm
no
sure,
problem. No problem.
I'm sure she will appreciate
Yeah.
a good speaker. So let
Thank you.
me see what we can do. Mike, do you want to say something before we sign off, Mike?
No, not really. I think it's fantastic, Duncan. It was always worth watching you in performance, listening to you, and trying to work out where your mind is going next. There's just so much we can all learn from you. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank
you.
you especially to Dunstan, and thank everyone for coming. Next time, bring your friends as well. I think many more people can benefit from Dunstan's sharing. So thank you and good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.